Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pitchside. Thank you so much for definitely checking out our content. As always, thank you for sharing the information, giving us feedback, and most definitely criticizing us where you feel we need to get better. I really appreciate that, and I also usually take this moment to request you who is out there and you've just joined Pitchside that it takes you half a second to be part of this family. All you have to do is hit the subscription button, and when you do, you'll definitely be a part of this family, and we'll be definitely talking a lot of African football, Ugandan football, and exclusive interviews. As you can see, today, as you all know, Pitchside is in Morocco, covering the Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations, the 35th edition that is happening in Morocco. And there's been lots of talking points the entire tournament. And I thought to myself, how about I reach out to a colleague of mine who definitely has a footprint in African football. You'll see Maher's content. If you're a French League One fan, you see him on Supersport. If you're an African football fan, on his podcast and all. So Maher is here, man. Excited to have him on Pitchside for the very first time.
Thank you, Peter. It's not the first time we meet. We met
No,
back
no,
in
no, no, no.
2019.
Yeah.
But thank you for having me on pitch side for the very first time.
I'm very excited to have you, bro. And
I'm doing well.
it's definitely exciting that we've decided to have some time amidst this very very busy schedule, not only of the Afcon but everyone's personal schedules and all. But hey, how are you, man? How are you? How's life, man? How is it going? I know I read first of all, good stuff. Well done with the content that you churn
Thank you.
out on African football, and we really do appreciate.
Yeah, but it's getting to that stage always at the end of the African Cup of Nations.
Yeah.
Starting to get tired, and now there's only 2 matches every 4 days. It's things are slowing down.
Yeah.
So actually, now is really the best time to do what we're doing right now, is to talk amongst one another, meet with different colleagues, make connections. It's not so much covering the football anymore, but almost ready to go home. But before that, we still have a big final.
Yeah. I think let's start with your experience in Morocco. How has it been covering the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco with everything that happened throughout the entire tournament?
Yeah, look, I'm familiar with Morocco. This is my 4th time visiting the country, so this isn't anything new to me. As everyone expected, the infrastructure is top-notch. I don't think we've seen better infrastructure at any African Cup of Nations. You talk about the Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium here in Rabat. It's world-class, state-of-the-art. There's no doubt about it. The quality of the pitches and the drainage systems, because for the first 10 days, Peter, it was raining cats and dogs
Everywhere, man.
every single day. And I thought for sure the pitches would be waterlogged, but they weren't waterlogged. So the quality of the pitches, quality of the infrastructure has been top. Hosting this tournament in the winter, though, excuse me, and hosting it in Rabat, I think those were the 2 things that maybe... That's what Hugo Bruce calls lack of Afcon vibes. I think there was just less people outside, out and about, on the eve of the semifinal match between Morocco and Nigeria. I was walking around Rabat, downtown, the main boulevards, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., expecting people to be outside, people to be, excited for the match. And the atmosphere wasn't the greatest. But I think it's because it's Rabat, the administrative capital, where most of the matches are being played, and because of the weather.
Yeah, the weather was quite a challenge on myself as well. Extremely cold, rainy every time. But yeah, you talk about the quality of the pitches. But let's talk about the Moroccan people. How have they received this football tournament? How do you feel they've enabled people like us to actually enjoy Morocco from your experience?
Yeah, it's been great. Honestly, everybody's been welcoming. Everybody's been hospitable, at least with me. It's even more than hospitable, very, very helpful, I would even say. It seems like they're ready for a tournament like this. They've hosted big competitions before. They know how to act. They know how to welcome tourists. They know how to welcome professionals. So, yeah, no complaints.
It's been exciting. So let's get on to the action. We know that the Afcon tournament has a 24-team format. And to be honest with you, it has a mixed reaction here and there, especially with the quality of football that comes with the 24-team tournament. From your experience and the whole tournament as a whole, do you think this format has served up some exciting games, especially from the group stages, or it's still watered down?
Actually, the opposite. I think the first three formats of the 2014 Afcon, 2019, 2021, 2023, we saw a lot of upsets in the group stages.
Yeah.
Remember, we had teams like Algeria crash out, Ghana crash out, teams like Madagascar in 2019 did very, very well. This was, for the very first time, a 2014 format tournament where we really had no real surprises going into the round of 16.
Yeah.
No real surprises going into the quarterfinals, semifinals, or even the final.
Yeah.
Prior to the tournament, everyone predicted it was going to be Morocco versus Senegal, and that's exactly what we got. So maybe, the 2014 format might be showing some of its limitations.
Yeah, you talk about maybe not. The quality and the players that have lit up the Afcon. You know, when the tournament starts, usually there's, a few players that pop up here and there, but as the tournament goes on, there are popular faces that go on and still, show up and do the business at the tournament. In this particular edition in Morocco, you talk of the main acts, Mohamed Salah, Riyad Mahrez, I can go on and on, Brahim Diaz at Morocco and all. But today, we know for sure that some players are not going to come back to feature at the Afcon. Mahrez announced that he will not return for Algeria. Yeah, Sadio Mane as well. Maybe Salah. From your perspective, Afcon 2027, how do you see some of these teams coming up without these faces?
Yeah, these three, we call them the three horsemen of the Premier League, really. They carried the face of African football in England for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
Salah, Mane, Mahrez, three African footballers of the year in their own right. We can even add Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, even though he's slightly older than them. I think this was going to be his last Afcon as well. So there's a little bit of a turning of the page here that's happening. And it's up to the younger generation to take the mantle and to show that they can step up to their level. So I'm thinking of Victor Osimhen, and he's done that so far.
Yeah.
And then Achraf Hakimi, he's definitely another one that's a little bit younger, that's stepping up and becoming, one of the faces of the continent. There are others where I'm not so sure about. It's up to them to really confirm and step up. Players like Ademola Lookman. He's one African Footballer of the Year, but we still don't consider him like a world class, like Osimhen and Hakimi. So it's up to him to put together 2-3 very good seasons and to step up to that level.
Yeah, then of course there is people like Evis Busoma with Mali. Didn't exactly have a good tournament, but maybe you can pop up here and there.
Unfortunately for him, I really rated him the first time I saw him at the 2017 Afcon in Gabon. And there he looked like a young technical attacking midfielder. As he's grown into his career, he's moved deeper and deeper in midfield. But with Bissouma, we hear a lot of problems about the mentality. Is he the most professional footballer? And I know that right now he's having big problems at Tottenham Hotspur because of that in particular. Yeah. This tournament, he captained the Mali team. They did pretty well, but unfortunately, as the captain, he let his team down, picking up a red card, in the quarterfinals. So we'll see. I think he has all the talent and the work ethic to get to that level. But it's up to him now to be consistent.
You mentioned Achraf Hakimi just a few minutes ago, and that leads me to the other question that I wanted to ask you. Morocco, the hosts of the Africa Cup of Nations, have over time in this tournament had mixed reactions. People saying they probably don't deserve to go as far as they went, and maybe some decisions were more leaning towards their end. Walid Regragui seems to be, I'm not an optimistic guy, and he seems to think that his team is where they are because they've earned it. What's your take on Morocco's performance?
I think all of those things are correct. I think at the beginning of the tournament, against teams like Comoros, against teams like Mali, against Zambia, they played well. But against those two teams and against Tanzania, we expected Morocco to play better. They didn't play better. And Regragui was insisting with stubbornness upon playing a double pivot with Sofiane Amrabat, for example. And his fans were criticizing him, and they were right to criticize him. And when he made the switch, he switched to a single pivot with Nail El-Ainaoui as sole number 6 and Abdesamed Azazouli on the wing instead of Ismail Sabari. They've had better results, and now he deserves credit because the last two matches against Cameroon and Nigeria, they've been incredible. So we don't have to it's not zero sum. We don't have to say, oh, you guys were criticizing him, he proved you wrong. No, he adjusted to things during the tournament. He should have been criticized initially. He was criticized. Credit to him for taking that criticism and adjusting. And now Morocco are playing the best football they've been playing all tournament.
You think they can replicate this in the next Afcon? This kind of team that they have, the quality that they have, can they still, show up in another nation and perform well?
Of course they can. Of course they can. But that is a criticism, or that is an argument that people bring up is Morocco, if you look at the amount of fixtures they've played over the last 4 years, probably 90%, if not 95%, have been played in Morocco. And so when they travel, when they have to travel, are they used to it? Do they know how to travel? All of it, because it's not easy to play outside on our African continent. There are so many variables, so many exterior conditions. So I think it's a valid criticism. That's something that we're going to have to see.
Yeah, but I know earlier on at the start of the interview you mentioned how incredible they've done a job, especially with hosting the tournament and all. I would want to know from your perspective, what are those take homes that they haven't done right? They are not 100% perfect for sure, as Morocco, as hosts.
That they haven't done or that they have done?
No, what they've done, but also what you feel like.
Well, what could be improved from an organizational point of view?
Yeah,
100% the Yalla app and the fan ID. Yeah. I mean, this is something that we saw initially, I think, in 2019 in Egypt.
Yeah.
And this one, both of them, I think, were bad ideas. But this one in particular was difficult to sign up initially. Then they made a few updates on the application. And then it was almost impossible to scan for certain passports. Yeah. So, like, because you had to scan a biometric passport with a chip in it to register yourself for a fan ID. Yeah. I could tell you with my American passport, it was impossible. For many Nigerians, they didn't have a chip in their passport and they could not manually. Too. Yeah. So this was, in my opinion, a crazy thing to do. Implementing e-visas for neighbor countries like Algeria, Tunisia, Burkina Faso, Mali, like that. I think also inhibited a lot of fans from traveling. So I didn't really like how they handled all of that.
Yeah. Then there's the dust now gathering about the next Afcon after the East Africa Afcon of 2028, the one that is going to precede, Afcon every after 4 years. The talk of no big African country being willing to actually host the tournament, and it's looking like Morocco could be the ones again to host.
Those are the rumors.
Just what should the other nations on the continent learn from all this?
Well, what should CAF learn from all of this? Well, you come to... Sorry, they 4 or 5 weeks ago, they announced that they're going to be holding an Afcon 2 years from now. Yeah. And they expect people to show up and say, yeah, we're ready. We're going to be ready in 2 years.
With what it takes to host it.
Come on. Yeah. So this is not what other nations should learn. It's what should CAF learn. If they want to have 3 Afcons in 3 years, 2026, 2027, 2028, I mean, obviously it's going to be difficult on many nations to host this tournament. But there are nations that can host it, don't get me wrong. South Africa has the infrastructure. Egypt has the infrastructure. Algeria has the infrastructure. These countries, they don't want to host this tournament. Why? That's the question that should be asked.
Yeah. Pamoja is willing to host with Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. With what we've seen here, Maher, what do you expect in 2027 in East Africa?
I'm expecting the inverse of this tournament. I'm expecting...
You're being brutally honest.
No, yeah. I'm not expecting... I mean, like, that not in a bad way necessarily. I'm not expecting the infrastructure to be as good. Yeah. But I'm expecting the vibes to be immaculate, incredible. And honestly, I think I'm going to have more fun than in Morocco. Yeah. I went to Kenya this summer, so I visited the country. I went to Nairobi. I loved it. It was great. I cannot wait to go to Tanzania. I cannot wait to go to Uganda. East Africans, I think, are the most perhaps self-deprecating Africans. They like to poke fun at one another. They like to have fun. They like to banter. And that's what I really, really love. That's why I think we're going to have Hugo Bruce's trademark Afcon vibes in this tournament. So I cannot wait. I think it's going to be one for the books.
It's going to be one for the books. East African football, though, represented at this Afcon, but not exactly in a proper way. Uganda didn't get out of the group stages. Tanzania reached the round of 16. Kenya did not show up. What's your take on the pitch, East Africa Afcon preparations?
I mean, ultimately, the question that has to be asked are these footballing nations? And I know they love football. All of them do. But ultimately, are your best athletes competing in football? And I'm not sure that's the case in either of the 3 countries. Perhaps Tanzania. But Kenya and Uganda, you guys have rugby that you're so good at. You guys have athletics, of course. You guys have so many different sports that the elite athletes are going to. Because there's the population. There's the love of sports. Financially, maybe lagging a little bit behind North Africa, but the other ingredients are all there. So I think it's just a matter of structuring it and trying to become more of a footballing nation, so to speak.
Being intentional.
Exactly. Like you take a country like Senegal. Senegal has 25 million people. How many people does Uganda have?
48, 50.
Okay. And Kenya and Tanzania are much bigger, right? 25 million people. They're top of the world. Why? Because they have the best academies in all of Africa and Senegal, whether it's Generation Foot, Jambars, Dakar Sacré-Cœur, Casa Sports, Jean d'Arc. These are 5 elite academies. And if you look at the team that won the Afcon in 2021, half of the team came from these 4 academies. So it doesn't take much. It takes like a few $1,000,000. Much less than Kenya is going to spend on Talanta. But instead of building a national stadium like that, they could have built 50 academies. With the right people running these academies, you could become a footballing powerhouse within 10, 15 years.
Well, they're saying they're preparing for Afcon. That's why they have Talanta up. But Maher, I think back to Morocco at the Afcon, I think 6 of the 8 coaches in the quarterfinals were from the African continent, coaching their respective teams. In the semi-finals, they were all, from the African continent. In the final, same story. What does that speak about African football and the growth?
Yeah, I'm a little bit wary to say, for me, what this means is that the big nations are hiring local coaches. That's what it means. Egypt hired a local coach. Tunisia hired a local coach. Morocco hired a local coach. Nigeria had African coach, you can say. Ghana has a local coach. That's all it means. Senegal, of course, yeah. It doesn't mean much more than that, in my opinion. Look, I think it also, the one thing, if you want to take away from it and make African coaches, at least we can say that African coaches are doing a good job, for sure. But I think if there was a good European coach, they probably would have taken those exact same squads to this exact same part of the competition as well. So for me, that's the main takeaway, is that the top sides in Africa are using domestic or African or local coaches. That's it.
Yeah, but do you feel like there's room for these coaches to do better, to improve, and maybe in the next editions, help their respective teams go as far as they can?
For sure. I mean, you talk to Senegalese people, and they'll say Pape Thiaw is a good coach, but he's not the reason why we're winning. The squad is the reason why they're winning. They were saying the same thing with Aliou Cisse.
Yeah.
Walid Regragui, good coach. One thing that I would say, I think where all of our African nations have improved the most, but this is in the direction that we're heading in world football, is all of these coaching staffs from all of these nations are much better resourced. So maybe 20 years ago, there was a coach, assistant coach, and junior assistant coach, maybe a physio, that's it. Now, a coaching staff is 15 people. Yeah. You have a strength and conditioning coach, you have a set piece coach, you have somebody for nutrition, you have... These technical staffs have become so much more professional. I think that's why we're seeing better tactical and technical football on the pitch.
All right, so of course, the tournament and everything that has happened, we've really tried to break it down. But the discussion that is, getting a lot of talking points is the Afcon moving to a 4-year cycle. This was announced.
Let me sit up for this one.
This was announced before this tournament started by the CAF president, Patrice Motsepe, and it's caused a lot of backlash. Why moving it to a 4-year cycle? Europe is maybe taking charge of African football and all. Hey man, what's your opinion on African football, on the Afcon moving to a 4-year cycle?
For me, I think it's a major decision. Yeah. And major decisions should be deliberated, discussed, debated before we come to a conclusion. Okay? This is my opinion. Yeah. Patrice Motsepe showed up on the eve of the African Cup of Nations and said, guys, this is what we're doing. No open, transparent debate, discussion. And he even says, I just met with Matthias Gafstrom and Gianni Infantino, and we decided this was the best thing. It's clearly not an African decision. It's clearly a decision that's been parachuting from the very top. Gianni Infantino has not wanted the African Cup of Nations to be held every 2 years for a long period of time. Patrice Motsepe, initially, when he came to the presidency of the Afcon, of the Confederation of African Football, said, no, we need it every 2 years because financially, it's good for the continent. Even past the financial reasons, you're Ugandan. Yeah. I'm Algerian. We're meeting in Morocco. This is good for the African continent. Yeah, Ugandans are going to hear me. People from East Africa are going to hear me talk about African football. Yeah. I'm speaking to you. I'm learning a lot from you. You're learning a lot from me. It's making the continent a smaller place. This kind of exchange is the most valuable thing we have about the African Cup of Nations. And now we're not doing it every 2 years anymore. We're doing it every 4 years. It's making the continent bigger. It's making us further and further away from one another. We're not having as much discussions. And for what? Why? Because FIFA wants more control of the international calendar, and they want to replace it with a Nations League. What was the last good idea that Gianni Infantino had for African football? It was the Super League. Remember that?
Yeah, it was the Super League.
Remember what did he promise us? He promised us $20 million for every single one of the 20 clubs that are going to participate. He promised us that the money would trickle down to the rest of the clubs. What ended up happening? He promised us it was going to be a 24 club competition. What happened? We played one prototype, eight clubs for 1 year. None of that money that was promised, and then they canned it. Why? Because he doesn't know the realities of African football. He comes in with his ideas from the top down, and he thinks he can impose it on the continent. It didn't work. The Nations League, I'm sorry, is not going to work as well as the African Cup of Nations. Ultimately, who I blame is the Confederation of African Football because they didn't stand up for African interest. And Motsepe said it himself. Listen, read between the lines. Listen, he says, yes, I care about African football, but I'm also responsible for the world football because when world football grows, African football grows. Okay. He starts telling me about Fulham. Fulham lose 6 players this year in the African Cup of Nations. Why do I care about Fulham? Yeah. I don't care about Fulham, honestly. Like, I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah. I care about us, Africans, coming together, celebrating being African every 2 years, and that being what makes the most sense from a financial perspective, but not just from a financial perspective, as I already mentioned. So sorry, I know this is a long answer, but this is not a sovereign decision that was made by Africans. It was not made in the interest of African football, in my opinion, and I think it was the wrong decision.
How would you sum up Patrice Motsepe's reign? There was a communique from CAF indicating how they've brought in a bigger number of sponsors. They've grown from the last Afcon in 2023. They are now 23 sponsors from 17 in Ivory Coast. The global viewership of the Afcon and all, they seem to show that the brand is growing at a very fast rate. But what's your opinion on his reign thus far?
Well, what are the metrics to success? Is it commercial and revenue and financial?
I don't think that's enough.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. He's done many good things. I think the decision to what they did initially when they came two Afcons ago, I think, and they decided to get the Afcon into as many different households as possible all around the world. Free-to-air channels. All of a sudden, people were watching the Afcon on Channel 4, BBC, Sky Sports. That was never available before. And they weren't worried about securing the most lucrative television deal. It was more about get it out, and then we can capitalize. I thought that was a very good decision. Obviously, with the sponsorships, doing a fantastic job. Social media, I think CAF are probably the best out of any other confederation. A really good Egyptian agency that they contracted that does a great job with things like TikTok and so on and so forth. So they've done, don't get me wrong, I'm not just trying to hate on Patrice Motsepe. I think they've done a lot of very good things. Remember where CAF was under the previous administration?
Yeah. Rampant
leaks every few weeks, infighting, FIFA coming in, international accounting firms coming in, looking at our finances. It was a mess. He's brought stability. He's brought sponsorship. But that's not it. That's not enough. Like, I'm sorry, but as a steward for football on the African continent, but I love the schools championship that he personally invested in. Yeah. Great. I love that part of it. But it's not enough. As a steward of African football on the African continent, your most important thing, in my opinion, is African youth. How can we get as many African youth playing football in a healthy way? Talk about 23 endorsements. Accepting an endorsement from 1xBet, in my opinion, is not smart. I don't mind if media companies or media companies or brands or whatever decide to collaborate with betting companies. I don't think CAF should collaborate with a betting company. And they don't need it, but they do it. So things like that, things like, I don't just look at financial health. I look at physical health. I look at moral health. And from there, I think we're not maybe doing the greatest job.
They're not scoring well. The other talking point at the Afcon in Morocco has been the refereeing. There's been a few talking points here and there. Fingers being pointed towards Morocco taking advantage and all of this. But your whole point on refereeing, you think CAF has tried to make sure that it's independent and they're accountable and they're responsible according to some decisions that have been made at the Afcon in very big matches?
Without getting into this country's controlling the referee, this referees are favoring this country over that country, because I don't think it's helpful. I don't think we have any proof, and I don't think that's even what's happening. Yeah. One thing that we can say without a shadow of a doubt CAF were wrong to enter this competition without a head of the officiating committee. That person was Noumendies Doué, actually the uncle of Desiree Doué, the PSG player, and the uncle of Gela Doué, the Ivorian right back that was playing in this tournament. He was a referee. Okay, he was in charge of the final of the Afcon in Morocco last summer. where Nigeria played against Morocco, and Morocco were hard done by. It was a very, very bad officiating performance from against Morocco, and everybody should admit that. But he was dismissed after that match, according to reports, because of Moroccan pressure. I don't know. Again, I didn't do that reporting. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. Maybe that's unfair. Morocco do get a lot of unfair flack from people that think they control everything from A to Z in CAF. But because of that match, he was dismissed. You want to dismiss him? First of all, if you dismiss him because of pressure of one country, I'm not saying that's the case. If you did that because of pressure of one country, then you invited the chaos that you did in the knockout stages here on yourself. Okay? Because accepting pressure for one country, all the other MAs are going to see that and say, oh, we can put pressure on CAF and we can try to influence. So if that was the case, then that was mistake number one. Mistake number two, if you decided, you know what, we're just going to dismiss him because he did a poor job. Okay. You enter this competition without a head of a referee committee. He wasn't replaced.
So it was a bit hard for the whole situation to
So now every single match you have federations coming in, we don't like this one. He's from this country. They have an agenda against us. No. And again, every match, like, we have referees appointed and then changed 24 hours ahead. The referees then start feeling the pressure, and maybe that's what's contributing to their poor performances. But without a shadow of a doubt, there's been poor performances, particularly in the knockout stages, but even in the group stages. And that is not a trademark of Afcon, because in Côte d'Ivoire, they were incredible.
Yeah.
And even in Cameroon, I thought they were okay as well, besides the Yanni Sekazwe incident between Tunisia and Mali. But I thought they were pretty decent in that tournament as well. So I think African referees get an unfair rap. But we have to be honest. They've been subpar in the knockout stages in this tournament.
Yeah, there's definitely been there. Your parting shots to, of course, the African continent, and you being in Morocco, and even watching the final and that whole experience. As we wrap up this interview, Maher.
No, look, I think whether it's Morocco or Senegal that win this tournament, it's going to be confirmation of the work that these countries have put in. Because Senegal, they could be establishing supremacy on our continent. 2 Afcons in the last 4 years, 3 finals in the last 4 years. Morocco, we see what they're doing over here. And for that to pay off, I think would be fitting for this country, because they deserve it. Because they've tried harder than anybody else to develop the quality of football in their country. And of course, they lifted all of Africa's name at the 2022 World Cup. So whether it's Morocco, whether it's Senegal, great. What I want to see now from other African nations is, look, we have a World Cup in 6 months' time. What lessons did you learn from your participation here at the African Cup of Nations in Morocco? And can you implement solutions to those problems in the next 6 months? Because some countries fired their coach, Tunisia. Yeah. Can you bring in the right coach? Can you help him build up just in 6 months? It's very, very tough. Some other countries like Algeria with Vladimir Petkovic, they didn't fire their coach. Okay, what lessons did you learn? What improvements can you implement? This is what I want to see from African nations.
All right. It's been a pleasure.
Peter, my guy.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me on.
I'm waiting on those gigs, man. I can do some French in the French one.
Let's do it.
And all of that. So, it was a pleasure having Maher joining me on Pitchside to discuss the Afcon and some talking points on the African football continent. Again, do not forget to subscribe and keep those reactions coming on Pitchside. So, cheers.